Your brain. Without it, you wouldn't be able to function. Your heart wouldn't pump, you wouldn't be able to breathe, and all of your bodily systems would be unable to exist. We can, therefore, say that your brain is the most important organ in your body, and keeping it in optimal condition is essential for a long and healthy life. The easiest way to do this is by consuming a healthy diet and avoiding foods that may have a diminishing effect on your gray matter. But what foods are bad for your brain? Which dietary choices should be avoided if you want to keep the risk of cognitive decline and neurological disorders at bay for as long as possible? Well, in today's video, we delve into the heart of this topic and look at an evil triumvirate of foods that should be steered clear of if you want to keep your brain as healthy as possible. Trans fats and saturated fats. Trans-unsaturated fatty acids, more commonly referred to as trans fats, are a type of fat that can have negative effects on brain health. While trans fats that occur naturally in animal products are not cause for concern, trans fats that have been man-made, i.e. hydrogenated vegetable oils, are one of the worst offenders of any food you can consume. Typically found in products like cakes, snack foods, margarine and frosting, trans fats have been shown to have a wide array of detrimental effects on cognitive health, function and performance, both in the short and long terms. Let's take a look at some of the evidence that shows this. Conducted in 2014, a review of several studies concluded that there was a positive association between trans fat intake and increased risk of cognitive disorders like dementia. A 2013 study that examined the correlation between habitual fat intake and memory function in younger women concluded that greater intakes of trans fat and higher saturated to unsaturated fat ratio were associated with poorer performance in both visuospatial tasks and word recall and recognition. Research carried out in 2015 into the relationship between dietary trans fatty acid consumption and word memory found that higher consumption of trans fats was associated with decreased word recall. However, in the interests of fairness, the evidence for this relationship hasn't been established in 100% of studies, as not all research has found a positive correlation between high trans fat intake and cognitive decline, higher risk of neurological disorders, and worsened cognitive performance. But, trans fats have unequivocally been shown to have a negative impact on health in general, therefore, they should be avoided as much as possible. As trans fats and saturated fats are inexorably linked, one question it would be prudent to answer is, does consumption of saturated fats have the same detrimental effects as trans fat? Well, the evidence is mixed. Although the above-mentioned 2014 review did find 3 studies that positively associated greater saturated fat consumption with increased risk of neurological disorders such as dementia, a 4th study mentioned within the review did not. Other studies carried out in 2002 and 2011 respectively also did not establish a link between the two. One fat that has been shown to have a positive impact upon cognitive function and health, however, is omega-3. Omega-3 fatty acids have been shown to increase the production of anti-inflammatory compounds in the brain, which have been shown to have a neuroprotective effect. Processed foods and snacks. For the purposes of this video, we'll define processed foods as being foods that are high in sugar, fats, such as saturated and hydrogenated fats, and sodium, salt, are dense in calories, almost devoid of nutrients, and likely to induce weight gain, i.e. foods that can have seriously detrimental effects on both brain and overall health. Let's take a look at some of the evidence that correlates the consumption of processed foods with reduced cognitive function and increased risk of neurological disorders. A 2015 study found that an increase in visceral adipose tissue, or, in layman's terms, the fat around your organs, is positively associated with microstructural brain tissue damage. Subcutaneous fat does not have the same effect, however. Research carried out in 2014 looked into the association between metabolic syndrome risk factors and the integrity of brain tissue. It was concluded that brain tissue decline can be detected in the early stages of metabolic syndrome. Another study conducted in 2014 sought to establish whether or not there is a connection between nutrient patterns and biomarkers of Alzheimer's disease. The researchers concluded that dietary choices might play a role in the prevention of Alzheimer's. A diet rich in fresh fruit and vegetables, low-fat dairy products, whole grains and fish, and low in processed foods was deemed to be AD protective, i.e. the consumption of such a diet may help to decrease the risk of Alzheimer's disease. In 2016, researchers examining the association between dietary patterns and cognitive function looked into the diet of over 18,000 participants and how their nutritional intake affected cognitive performance. The results were clear-cut: a diet pattern that included fried foods and processed meats resulted in lower cognitive scores. A further study also carried out in 2016 came to a similar conclusion. Scientists found that diets containing higher levels of red and processed meat and fried food were associated with increased inflammatory markers and accelerated cognitive decline. It has also been found that processed food found in Western diets can have detrimental effects on brain health and cognitive function and induce hippocampal dysfunction. Researchers have surmised that one pathway by which processed foods may negatively impact brain health is by decreasing the production of a molecule called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is vital for long-term memory and learning. As you can see from the evidence mentioned in this video, processed foods are not a wise choice if you value your cognitive health, function and performance. Instead, opting for a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, oily fish, whole grains, nuts, seeds and lean meats can have a positive impact upon the health of your gray matter. Sugary beverages. A high intake of sugary beverages has not only been associated with weight gain and obesity, an increased risk of type 2 diabetes and heart disease, it can also have a detrimental effect on your brain. So, let's take a look at the evidence. A study conducted in 2013 concluded that excessive consumption of sugary drinks increases the risk of developing type 2 diabetes, which has been shown to increase the odds of Alzheimer's disease. However, high blood sugar levels in those without type 2 diabetes also increases the risk of neurological disorders such as dementia. The main ingredient in many sugary beverages is high fructose corn syrup, commonly referred to as HFCS, which is typically 50% glucose and 50% fructose, although ratios can vary. Excessive consumption of high fructose corn syrup has been linked to a myriad of negative health effects, including the long-term risk of dementia. Animal studies have also shown a link between diets high in sugar and increased risks to brain health. In 2015, a study showed that high intake of fructose can result in insulin resistance in the brain itself and reduced brain function, memory and formation of neurons. Further animal studies have exemplified that diets rich in sugar increase inflammation in the brain and negatively affect memory, with rats who consumed higher levels of high fructose corn syrup performing worse than those that consumed sugar instead. While more research is required, this evidence suggests that high intake of sugar will have a detrimental effect on your brain health, whereas a healthy diet low in sugar will have the opposite effect, i.e. protect your gray matter and reduce the risk of decline and disease. However, sugar is addictive, therefore, it can be very difficult to reduce your intake, let alone reduce your consumption completely. However, if trying to do so, avoiding artificial sweeteners is advised as they are largely associated with negative health effects and can actually be worse for you than beverages high in sugar. The worst foods for your brain. A conclusion. The evidence discussed in this video is overwhelming. Consuming an excess of trans fats, processed food and sugary beverages can increase the risk of cognitive decline and neurological diseases. But this trio of foods aren't the only ones to look out for. Refined carbs and alcohol should also be on your list of foods to be avoided or only consumed in small quantities. Instead, look towards a Mediterranean-style diet, high in monounsaturated fatty acids, as this has been shown to have a positive effect on cognitive function and health. Thank you for watching. We hope you found the information presented in this video informative and useful. For further science-based videos related to brain health, general health, and fitness, please head over to our channel page.